Like a lot of it's honestly like shame based, man. And I don't know if that's
Yeah.
good or bad. It's reached success, but I've started to realize like there's an easier way to do it. It doesn't have to be so stressful. It doesn't have to be so hard. You don't need a chip on your shoulder. You just need the right information. I don't know, man. I think generalist is the new specialist, man, because it makes you dangerous. It really does. But if we're really going to try to visualize, it's not just let's think about making that shot at the free throw line. What's it smell like? What do people are yelling at me? People want me to fail. I'm not going to fail. I make this 9 out of 10 and I'm guaranteed to make this right now. It's literally feeling it in the moment. So do as I say, not as I do. I'm not an expert at this, but if you don't physically feel different in your body and your breathing, you're not truly visualizing. You're kind of, there's a surface level and there's truly moving into the moment. And I find that difficult to do sometimes.
Hey Ben, thanks for coming on. You're a bit of a podcast guru. You've just got a lot of stuff going on. That's really what I'm going for. I want to um just be all over the place all at once, and you're definitely a model for that. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
I got more and more excited kind of the deeper you ran into it. So thanks for coming on, Ben.
Excited for this, Jake, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. And so for anyone listening, this is the Quality Values Podcast. Um, the core question is, what are your values in the context of your story? So we'll start by kind of filling out the context. And let me actually start by giving you a tiny bit of context of where I'm at, because I
Mm,
listened to some of your stuff and there's a lot of parallels. So I think we can just jump off from there. So it's, um, yeah, I've been a trainer for the last few years. And then I just moved to Nashville 4 or 5 months ago.
nice.
And I've been just kind of focused on getting this podcast growing. I started another podcast, and I've just been trying to build systems. And I want to carry that over into my training as well, kind of
Mm,
shift into an online training. I'm working on that. I've got a product of training, like a fitness product I want to launch, and a book that I want to launch. So I'm doing all these things at once. And um, I've heard from your podcast that you kind of do that. You kind of have that everything at once. So tell me a little bit about that for you. When did you shift into this um, off the cuff lifestyle of doing all these things, and how do you get this deep in?
sure, man. And I appreciate you sharing that. This isn't an endorsement, but I've got a Whoop bicep band on
Got it.
right now. Um, because I learned this from a mentor of mine, Brian Bogert. There isn't really an end destination, only constant evolution of self. And it doesn't matter what bucket. It could be fitness, it could be family, it could be money, it could be marketing, it could be business, it could be faith. We're never going to be a full 100 out of 100. So we always have to figure out how to dabble, how to train, how to learn. You talk about being everywhere at all at once. Like, I just like learning from people. I don't know how deep we want to go into the story, but when we talk about values, I didn't speak the first 13 years of my life. I was a quiet kid, crackly voice, fear of public speaking. Never imagined I'd be a entrepreneur or a podcaster. Honestly, like no Bezos on the wall. Like I wanted to be the next Michael Jordan back in the day. But the quiet kid who wanted to be Michael Jordan was pretty short and got beat up, got bullied. And when we talk about values, I didn't realize it, but my love of growth came from feeling small, feeling like my superpower was the ability to hide. Like I had an invisibility cloak. I could be in a room with thousands of people and just feel completely unseen, like I almost said invincible. It's the opposite,
Mhm.
invisible. Um, and it's interesting how values develop because the love of learning came from like how do I not be so weird and shy and odd. The love of growth came from literally being small. The love of connection, and I have a podcast, Real Business Connections, came from like feeling disconnected. And one thing I've found is I'm not like a fantastic multitasker per se, but I like having multiple projects at a time. I'm very creative. There's a music industry side of me. There's a business side of me, there's a personal growth side of me. I like podcasting, I like networking, I like introducing people. All of that gives me different data points from different people that allow me to constantly evolve. And again, like, I don't think we get to choose our values. Part of where I said it, like growth, I like to call it wisdom nowadays. Connection, oftentimes, is just a sense of belonging. And then I used to think it was fun because I love partying, music, having fun. But to me, I'm starting to see it's more fulfillment. Those developed at a young age, whether I realized it or not. And having a podcast and a business and doing marketing really lends well to those values. So, yeah, man, I'm just excited at what I get to do. And again, I didn't speak for 13 years. So the fact I'm on this podcast is badass in itself, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I relate to that a lot. I had a growth spurt. 11th grade, I grew 11 inches basically.
Oh,
But
wow.
before that, I was always the shortest kid, and I played sports. Baseball was mine, but I had I don't know, I was elusive. I felt, and I could blend in and
Yeah.
yeah, get through the crowd. So yeah, and then I remember at one point I had a public speaking class, or it was an English class with a public speaking component. There was a recurring, like every 2 weeks, public speaking assignment. And I remember it was the worst. I hated it. Um, but over the course, I mean, I had to do it. I was forced to do it. And I started to kind of like it. I like the challenge of it and the kind of facing the uncertainty, the discomfort. So it's cool that you kind of went through that similar path. All right, I'm curious. So you went kind of through the overview of everything you're doing. Can you give me the backstory of what was the timing of it all? When did you get into the podcast? Uh, how do all the pieces fit together? The personal growth and everything else that you're doing. What's the whole puzzle look like now, and how'd you kind of get here?
Yeah, I mean, this might sound a little ethereal and all over the place because when you look at like the hero's journey, there's this moment where you're called to do this. Like, it wasn't this mathematical, it didn't follow a structure. One thing I've learned is everything we've done is in preparation for who we get to become. Everything we doing is preparing us for the man, woman, child, whatever we get to be later on. So, like, I didn't it's hard to like timeline it, but I was a music kid. So I was quiet, then I got into the music industry. And the reason I found the music industry is because I was a creative type. I was kind of an oddball, and I found my tribe. And once I found my tribe, in the right context, I was the loudest person in the room. So I was promoting, I was handing out flyers at the time, setting up MySpace pages, then Facebook pages, then websites. Then I got to a point where I was promoting and booking bands at local venues. And that transitioned to starting a music podcast in 2016. So really, like, the love of music transcends into pod. I never thought that I'd be podcasting, like, still to this day. I just wanted to get into places for free back in the day, and there wasn't a local music podcast in my city, so I started one. So then I got trained on podcasting, just doing it for fun. I got trained on marketing and promotion before I even knew what the word marketing was. And then over time, we'll skip a lot, I found myself in a career in marketing. So I was full time marketer at a corporate job. I was actually in more of a sales role. And when the pandemic hit, I had just started at a brand new company. So I started a new company. 6 months later, the pandemic hits. Last one in, first one out. I got let go in early of 2020, April 2020. And yeah, man, Music Ben was broke, unemployed, non essential. But I shifted a lot of those skills and passions of mine, podcasting, marketing, um, at the time music, but it was recording technology and having conversations and the whole shabam. I shifted it from music to business, started a business podcast, and now it's like crazy that that's been running for almost 5 full years. But it started way back in the day, man, 2016.
So with the business side of it, when like you kind of have to attach business and entrepreneurship to your identity to start a business podcast, so when did you kind of um, we come to the realization like I'm a businessman, I'm a networker, I've got a lot of value to offer to the business world. attach that to your identity and then start running with that with the podcast and other ventures?
Yeah, I don't know that I sat down and said, this is who I am. I didn't have a job. And I was on LinkedIn and I was trying to find jobs. And I thought to myself, my girlfriend's actually like, everything on your laptop is all you need to market. Why don't you just give it a shot? Because I understood web design, I
Yeah.
understood social media marketing, things like that. I wasn't a pro yet, but I was learning and I could dabble. I was strong at it. So I was just like, Ben needs connections. So I started a podcast called Rochester Business Connections, not because I had some clear clarity on my future vision. It was because I needed some. And I literally called it connections because I needed some. And on LinkedIn, a friend request was called a connection request. And I knew that as a B2B marketer, I needed to talk to business owners. Obviously they're prospective clients, but I also don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't bold to be like, I'm an entrepreneur. I was born to do this. I was humble to be like, I don't even know if I know what I'm doing. Let's
Hmm.
start a podcast. Let's learn from people that are steps ahead of me. And the icing on the cake is they work prospective customers for the marketing firm that I started on a whim, not really knowing what I was doing. And it wasn't always the guest that became a client, but it was the network I built that led to recommendations, introductions, and I started getting clients pretty quickly as the humble nobody that doesn't know what he's doing. It's because I was showing up in my best place, being like, hey, I'm just here to learn, Jake. I was building relationships. And guess what happened in the process? I learned how to business. I learned how to do it in the process, but it's not like I just waved my flag and said, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to kick all your butts. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to start a podcast to document the process of it. And now, if you were to listen to like the first 20 episodes versus the most recent 20, the evolution has been documented through video. And I haven't went here yet, but I'd love to at some point like create a video or a keynote or a podcast around what that journey looked like.
Hmm.
So, my one micro tip, this is nothing to do with what we just talked about. This is any context. Start documenting the journey because you're going to look back 5 years and you're going to be like, wow, like, look what I just did. So, document the journey, whether that's a journal, whether it's a podcast, whether that's video, whether that's in your social media. I did 30 days of flaws once where I documented a flaw a day for 30 days just to kind of get into that, put a little salt in my own wounds. Document the journey, you're going to be better for it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think also by documenting, you kind of you appreciate the moment. There's you understand like here and now matters because we're saving it for later. We're going to use this moment in some form or fashion down the road, whether it's to review or as a tool, as a part of something bigger. Um, so I'm curious about your learning journey.
Mm.
You talked about a lot of the learning strategies that you do in the context of identity for the last question, but just focusing on learning, like you get into marketing, you start the podcast, start reaching out to people who do business, start learning through the podcast. And I love that too. This my favorite part of this podcast is all the things I've learned, and I love learning through conversation. But I also use other strategies. I like books and listening to podcasts and yeah, right now ChatGPT. Like there's all different tools you can use to figure stuff out. So what are your learning strategies? What's your learning philosophy? How do you try to understand things, since it seems like you jump from one bucket to the other? Like you really good at the music, and then you're like, I'm gonna get really good at the marketing, keep the music going.
Hmm.
That's part of you, but and then take a lot of those skills that you built in the music and move it to the next. So it's um what's your learning journey like when you pick something and hone in on it? How do you learn it as quickly as possible?
You nailed it, man. Reading books, podcasts, YouTube University,
Yeah.
ChatGPT is fun as heck. I had blood work done. Um,
Oh,
cholesterol, triglycerides are a little higher than I wanted them to be. So I put all my blood work through ChatGPT. It served as both my therapist and my nutrition coach, and we like talked
Yeah.
through like what I could do better. It was like a fun conversation. I can share that with you if you want, but yeah, dude, if I were to transfer, you said as quickly as possible. That's the one
Yeah.
thing
They're
I'm actually not good at.
okay. So let's
Like,
get into the values. What when
yeah,
you're learning something, what's the objective? Let's start there and then get to the strategies.
I just think if I could transfer anything to everyone, it would just be curiosity.
Okay.
Um, because as quickly as possible isn't always as sustainable as possible.
Mhm.
Success does reward speed, but so does failure. First to succeed, first to fail. I am a slow learner. This is just Ben. I don't know if it's a value, but I'm a slow learner. I like input. I like data. I like learning from a lot of before I go into an interaction, it's actually common that I already have 6 different variations of what could happen. And I've already planned them all in my head. So when I go in, I know that I'm dangerous because I've thought it through. So I take more time than some people. I'm not as impulsive. I think this is like what makes me awesome. I'm not as impulsive. I plan my attack. So yeah, man, reading books, listening to podcasts, having conversations with ChatGPT, planning it out. The core behind all of it is curiosity, knowing that I don't know what I don't know. Sure, I've done a few things in the music industry, but I wasn't successful. I had fun. I don't know business just because I was semi successful, a little bit of momentum here. You don't know what you don't know. So for me, speed is actually like not my number one priority. Mastery is my priority. And the only way to become a master is to be curious. So this is a tangent we can go if you want, but the short version is in September last year, I tore my rotator cuff. And I did it a silly, just slipping on mud and falling and trying to hold myself up, and my shoulder tore. And I'm like, I'm too young for this to happen, but am I overworking at the gym? Am I drinking and dehydrated because of alcohol? Like, there's a lot of factors at play. So instead of woe is me, I hurt myself, I get into curiosity and I say, let's go backwards and see what got me here so it doesn't happen again. So yeah, man, if I could transfer anything, it's just being curious and then applying that to different situations.
Yeah. Do you know Josh Waitzkin?
I don't know.
Oh man, you got to check him out. It's a lot of what he was in search of Bobby Fischer or some. There's a book about chess, but he was like this chess prodigy, and then um, he he went through that, and then he got into martial arts and became one of the world champions in some martial arts, and then he's just kind of a learning specialist. Now he works for the Celtics, and he's just a kind of a learning coach. But a
Well,
lot of what you say echoes what he does, and he has this idea of like frames per second, where the deeper you learn something, the when you're in a situation, the more frames you have, the slower everything is moving relative
mm,
to someone who hasn't thought about it from so many different angles. So, but a lot of what you say echoes that. That's super cool. Yeah, and it's cool. I think when you learn deeply like that, the crossover is more and more from different subjects, like what are relatively different domains, whether it's music and then marketing, whether it's podcasting and then um whatever, it all, this basketball, it all, there's different
mm.
frames, but they all blend together. You can learn one thing and transfer it over.
Yeah, dude,
um
real quick, like wherever you go, there you are. So your skills are going to be with you. The energy you bring to the conversation is going to be with you. Like
yeah.
I might not be an expert at something. I might not ever be good at it. I'm not good at ballerinaing. I'm not a ballerina. But if I show up and I bring the athletics I do have, and I bring the patience I do have, and I bring the skills I do have, I'll be more successful because I already have that. So it's like wherever you go, there you are. So we're always preparing for the next challenge, or we're preparing to fail the next challenge. Like either way, it's a choice. Working your ass off, which I don't always do, is a choice. Being lazy and not taking care of your health and not taking care of your body and not having a mentor, that's a choice as well. It's all in preparation, you know?
Yeah. And so you're making these choices, you're curiosity driven. what's behind, like what's behind the choices you're making? What's behind the curiosity? I mean, it seems like you're the type of person. There's no end to it. There's no finish line. There's no.
Hmm.
You mentioned there's no 100 out of 100. It's always it's an endless game, right? So what's the target? Is it what's the the direction on the compass that you're headed? Like, do you have any, like, what do you want to, what impact do you want to make, or what questions are you trying to answer for yourself?
It's such a big question because, like, what's behind it? Like, honestly, man, I don't want to feel small. I know what it feels like to be
Yeah.
bullied. I know what it feels like to fail, and I want to do that. And a lot of us walk around with chips on our shoulders. I don't even know if that's healthy or not, but a lot of my success and drive comes from a chip on my shoulder. But the bigger vision is people don't have to fail to learn the stuff we've failed on. Like, they can skip the line if they learn from mentors, coaches, support that care about them. So a lot of what I learned through was failure, doing things the hard way, chip on my shoulder, wanting to prove my dad I could succeed, wanting to impress my mom, wanting to impress the girls, wanting to impress colleagues, wanting my clients to succeed. Like, a lot of it's honestly like shame based, man. And I don't know if that's
Yeah.
good or bad. It's reach success. But I've started to realize, like, there's an easier way to do it. It doesn't have to be so stressful. It doesn't have to be so hard. You don't need a chip on your shoulder. You just need the right information. So the big goal, it really is getting the wisdom from the people who have it to the people who need it, because I think our biggest expense in life is following the wrong mentor, running really fast, which is still a good workout, but really fast in the wrong direction and having to turn around. My goal is like to, you can ask me anything and I'll just tell you what is true to me, because
Yeah.
I don't want to leave anything out in the I want to put everything on the table. I don't want to leave anything in my pockets. So the goal is to put it all out on the table, to share everything. Because if we can get the wisdom and the ideas and the solutions from the people who have it to the people who need it, we're just a stronger society as a whole. And sure, sometimes I might like get paid to do that, but I would do this for free, man. It's just a
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Think which direction to go, but
I came heavy on that one, man.
yeah, yeah,
Why
and I like it.
questions?
It's
A lot of people answer why questions with something they learned in a seminar. I don't know the why, man. The why is because I want to impress my parents. Like, it's
Yeah,
crazy,
no,
dude.
I feel that too, and a lot of what you say resonates, and I have my own versions of it, but um, I want to hone in on that chip on the shoulder bit.
Yeah.
You kind of like the way you described it made it seem like you kind of had a shift where at some point, or maybe it was a gradual, but the shift occurred. At any rate, it's having the chip on the shoulder to more just focusing on providing value, and that slipped away. Is that fair, first of all? And then what do you think needed to be true to make that shift? Was there success behind it? Was it getting stacking some wins and kind of like having tangible results, or was it more just getting to a level of confidence? Like, I've read enough, I've consumed enough information, I've internalized enough of my surroundings that, like, I have a base. Like, where did that kind of confidence and that shift from having the chip on the shoulder to living more free take place? What needed to be true?
I feel like all of those things in different ways. So I remember a specific moment, and it happened multiple times. Laying like on my couch, staring at an empty bottle of whiskey, bloodshot eyes. Back in the day, even, I never talk about this. I had started a podcast called Immediate Actionable Steps, and it was like a personal growth podcast. But I'd look myself in the mirror and my eyes were bloodshot, and like I knew the mechanics. I understood what to do, but my actions weren't in alignment with what I needed to do. So you talk about like getting wins, getting momentum. It literally was as simple as marrying the knowledge of what to do and the action of actually doing it. And once I still like, I'm not like completely sober. I still have drinks here and then, but once I stopped binge drinking 3 to 4 days in a row, once I stopped pretending like I had it figured out, even though I was hurting inside, once I actually sat down, started journaling every morning, started exercising every day, when I started to do affirmations in the mirror and my eyes weren't bloodshot, that was confidence that something was working. So it was marrying knowing what to do, and we can talk about what to do. I think 9 out of 10 people already know what's right and wrong, and they don't know everything yet. They haven't achieved mastery, but every listener already has a multiple things on their list that they want to do, they think they should do, they haven't done yet. And then they have multiple things on their list that are making them bitter. Let's take a step back. You can even draw a line down a page. One side, you write the word better, the other side, you write the word bitter. You find the stuff that makes you bitter, you cross them out of your life, and you replace them with the things that make you better. And let's say you spend 30 minutes a day looking at porn, as an example, and you replace the 30 minutes looking at porn with 30 minutes of exercise. You have not actually added any more time. You have, it's not like people are so busy. Well, just erase the stuff that's wasting your time, replace it with something that makes you better, not bitter, and then you haven't even affected the amount of time. You can still get the same amount of sleep. Everyone's like, I'm too busy. I'm like, if you're too busy, then figure out what you need to cross out and then you can replace it. So I'm going on a tangent here, but it was really as simple as I knew what to do. It was just doing it.
Yeah, and uh, yeah, what you said about marrying what to do it, um, like when that hits, and that's resonates because I think the times and where I've had more momentum, where I've been more effective, that's it's when those things are aligned. So,
Totally.
but yeah, I'm asking these questions for myself, but hopefully people listening can
Well,
relate. But
talk about like, so you're a trainer,
yeah,
and like if someone's diet isn't right, if they're not sleeping well, if they're not hydrating, it's going to put them at risk of injury and they won't get the gains they want because of these other factors. So like you can teach them how to do the move, but is it correct that there's other factors at play that are beyond just how to do do a press, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's everything's intertwined. It all works together. All right, so I'm curious about the podcast specifically, since recently I started a second podcast with this guy, and it's more niche down. This is a very broad podcast, and that was kind of my intention from the beginning. It's about values, but I've talked to business people. I talked to a microbiologist for the last one. I've talked to athletes, artists, and I like that. But this other podcast is more niche down, and I see the value in that. And kind of as soon as I started the second one, I was like, oh, you can just have a bunch and really cater to specific people, and then also like they kind of work off each other, the connections you meet. It all works together, like we're saying. I'm curious, how do you think about defining a niche for your podcast, and then the like, uh, yeah, how do you keep that consistent throughout? Like, how do you like do you assign a mission statement to each podcast, or is there a series of values or something behind each podcast to kind of keep it in line when you're balancing so many different things with so many different angles?
You're incorporating parts of the answer in the question, which makes life super easy to me because if there's two main things I look at, it's one half is values. What do I value? What does the audience value? Let's intertwine the two. And a podcast is just a bridge for
Yeah,
you to reach an audience with similar interests and values. It's just a bridge. But what do I value? What do they value? The other category I look at, I simplify with plus, minus, and equals. Plus is a mentor, they're a coach, they're someone you're learning from. A minus is a mentee. You're the coach. Maybe they're paying you, maybe they're your podcast audience. Equal is peer to peer support. the people that recommendations, we can hang out, we can share ideas. Maybe neither of us are mentoring each other, but we're peers. We feel comfortable together. I would build around those two categories. So there's what do I value? What does the audience value? And the other half is who are my pluses? Who are my minuses? Who are my equals? Because if I find mentors and coaches that have similar values as my audience and me, I'm going to learn a ton, and they're actually going to provide social proof to me. As I learn and be their sensei, they're going to provide social proof. Your peers, we all know what peers do. We can share ideas, we can share information, we can share referrals. And then the minus are mentees. They're not any worse than us. We're just mentoring them in this category. They're our audience, they're buying from us. So again, if you're value centered, you know who your plus, minus, and equals are. You ensure that they have similar values as you. They could be a marine biologist, an athlete, they could be a coder, they could be a nurse. If we have similar values, it's going to mean something to an audience that believes in something the same. So, oh man, I want to draw it out because this is the kind of thing that you draw out. Who are my pluses? Who are my minus? Who are my equals? If I can explain who they are, that's great. It's even better to know literally names of people. And
Yeah.
are those people in alignment with the values I have? There's people that could bring listens to my podcast, but they would say things controversial that I disagree with, so they don't come on the show. It's really that simple.
And then how do you navigate a niche? How do you find the people that do come on the show? Would it, when you're getting to a new topic, do you always wait to the point where you know the niche, I should say, before you jump in and start your own podcast and really start learning? Do you wait to what's kind of the barrier to entry where you're like, all right, I'm starting a podcast. I know that I'm going to continue to be interested in this and it's going to be worth the build, you know? Um, and then, yeah, how do you prioritize who you go after in that niche to learn from?
Yeah, I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah.
The easiest niche is proximity, it's location. The easiest niche someone can
Yeah.
start with is be the blank in blank. Be the podcaster in Rochester, New York. Started Rochester Business Connections. Be the best plumber in your city. Be the best YouTuber in your town. It's so much easier if you're focusing on proximity because these are people around you. You can actually physically go get coffee and you can be the biggest fish in a tiny pond. Because when you start a podcast trying to be the next Joe Rogan, you're going to be a minnow in the ocean of sameness. So niching down is important. I think the easiest niche is just local based. Or, I mean, again, like it's hard for me to tell someone the best way to do it because most people already know the answer. Because, and what I mean by that is if you're a gamer and you're on Twitch 6 hours a day, I think there's breadcrumbs there as to let's do something maybe around Twitch. Maybe let's live stream. Maybe let's go long. If I like going to in-person conferences, maybe I start a podcast that's documenting the experience at these conferences. But if you have your values in line, you know your audience is similar values, and I mean, do you have a business product? Are you doing it for fun? There's a lot of questions we need to ask here, but it's usually right in front of us. Like I was a Rochester business owner who wanted to learn and have business, so I started Rochester Business Connections. If I wanted to be whitewater fly fishing, I could start a whitewater fly fishing for cold climate podcast, and it probably doesn't exist. But I'm a whitewater fly fisher in a cold climate, and I find ways to do it in interesting scenarios. People would be on board with that. So probably not the best advice. I genuinely think the answer is usually right in front of someone's face. And the better advice is to try it out and be willing to pivot if it doesn't work out. Because I could come up with the best niche and think I have it all figured out and it lands flat. So try it out. For lands flat, that's okay. And then the last little thing I'd say is if you don't enjoy it, why would you do it anyways? So I think it's usually right in front of our face, man.
And then sorry to stick on these niches, but it's fascinating to me. How do you draw the boundaries? Like when you say you're doing a fly fishing for people in cold water climates, like how do you decide that's the right size to start rather than just a fly fisherman? Obviously the cold water is, I guess, when it starts to, there hasn't been a podcast on it yet, but but when you like, you could go infinitely small. You know, you could be for male fishermen who use X brand of rod. You know,
Yeah.
um, so from what you've done, from your experience, what's kind of the sweet spot for the size of the niche, and how do you kind of work to draw those boundaries? Are you going off of numbers, or is it just kind of a gut logic thing?
Are we doing it just to have fun and as like a social tool to build a social network just to have fun? Or are we doing it to sell a product?
I,
That
I, I really the first one. I like just doing it to and not wasting time. You know, not like at the end of the day being like that was worth it. You know, whether it's you get a little bit of income or
mm,
you learn something. Like I guess I'm interested. Why I'm honestly interested why you break it down that way. Is that part of the equation?
yeah, I mean, dude, if I'm just doing it to have fun, I'm not wasting time. Like I'm just shooting the
Yeah.
breeze with my friends. I'm creating content I'm passionate about. I'm documenting the experience. I'm
Yeah.
gaining data and I'm getting better. Like to me, like that's freaking fun as hell. Like it's stuff that people do without any monetary need at all. If you're trying to make money, you have to look at things a little bit differently. What product or service is aligned with what I'm doing here? If I want to get sponsorships, it might require that I develop a larger audience for that sponsorship. If I'm am I trying to be a keynote speaker across the world? Am I just trying to do it on Zoom? We want to marry what we're creating with the offerings we have, because if it's just a passion project, it's crazy. Sometimes the passion projects that aren't well thought out go the most viral because they're the
Yeah.
most genuine.
Mhm.
But if I'm doing the fly fishing thing and I want to teach other fly fishers, it's not scalable per se to do it all in person. So I might create a podcast, a YouTube channel, a paid course where I teach people at scale what I've learned about fly fishing. And I might develop and white label and create products for fly fishers. Maybe I don't just sell one item at a time. Maybe I create packages so they can buy my 11 most recommended items you need, like a starter kit. So then I have a course, I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, maybe have a group coaching. Fly fishing, I don't know if we would do group coaching. I don't know how that works. But then I have a starter kit product. So I'm finding multiple ways to monetize, but I'm going to need a large enough audience. It doesn't have to be millions of people. It could be 1,000 people spending $1,000 on me a year, 1,000 people spending $10 a year to start. So, yeah, man, it really, you got to figure out what you want first and then you can work backwards. But I don't think there's hard or fast rules. I don't think there's one way of doing things. It's figure out what the purpose of doing it is and then work backwards from there.
Okay. So then for you, what when you're working backwards, like what are you going for right now? Like from this moment, um, when you're kind of weighing the pros and cons of how to spend, I'm sure you've got lots of opportunities. There's lots of this, like, and you talked about making that chart of bitter and better and kind of moving things as far to the better side, crossing off
Yeah.
and moving over. But, yeah, like what are you going for right now? Like when you're weighing your options, what you're, I mean, I think everyone kind of like goes for the highest expected value, you know, but I guess my question to you is what's the unit of the value? Is it, dollars? Is it money? Is it information? Is it connections? Is it impact? When you're weighing your options, like how do you kind of weigh these core things that you're going for?
Dude, it's how I feel when my head hits the pillow. It's
There we
how I
go.
feel when my head hits the pillow. being broke is hard. No one wants to be broke. I also don't need to be a billionaire. So there's how do I weigh the options? I don't know, man. It's a blend, dude. It's like chili. It's like a goulash. There's a lot of freaking ingredients in there. I want to feel connected. I want to feel heard and understood. If you look at plus, minus, and equals, I want to spend a lot of time with peers. I want to spend a lot of time with mentors, and I want to mentor someone. Part of why I love talking about plus, minus, equals over and over again is I think it's a metric for life. You need a lot of peers, you need a lot of mentor. You don't even need a lot. You need peers. You need a mentor. You need to be mentoring. If you don't have all three categories, something's going to be missing. If you don't feel healthy, if you're not sleeping well, that's not good. If you don't have money, that's not good. A lot of people try to 10x everything in life. I'm good with 6 to 8. I'd rather be 6 to 8 with every single category than be a 100 out of 100 in my money bucket and a 0 out of 100 in my health bucket. Because what's going to happen is my health's going to kill me and the money's not going to spend anything. So I don't have a perfect science. It's, dude, how does my head feel when I hit the pillow? Am I worried about my next dollar? That's a problem. Am I worried about my health? That's a problem. And yeah, man, again, I don't have an answer for you, dude. A lot of it's intuitive.
Yeah,
As a dude who's hyper rational, I try to make everything logical, but we know, man, like we know if we're screwing up. Like we know. Like there's signs, man. We know, dude.
yeah. It's all. I think it comes down to what you feel, and you can, based on what you remember, it kind of like that's the context for how you feel in any given situation. So build memories intentionally, and then you got to go by feel.
Dude, I like
Um,
that.
yeah. Um, Interesting. And so, and I like the depth that you go to. It's this goulash. We keep coming back to the goulash. Would you consider yourself a master generalist?
It's such a funny statement, a master generalist.
Like, is that that's something I've kind of gone after. Is like
Yeah.
I'm a big martial arts fan. I'm obsessed with it, but
Mm,
the UFC is cool because everyone kind of comes in. They start out with something. Now more and more, there's people who are MMA people, but historically it's been jujitsu people or Muay Thai guys or wrestlers, and they come in and they kind of learn the other skills. Um, but then now there's generalists, and there's some people who are just kind of do it all. They kind of learned it all at once.
yeah.
Would you consider yourself that like in your own sphere, in your own octagon?
Totally a generalist, dude. It's you look at like the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, you look at freaking me and my personal trainer were talking about Ronnie Coleman this morning, like, and how his health diminished, even though he was the greatest of all time when it comes to bodybuilding. Um, it's a sacrifice. Like you can be a specialist. Here's the thing: you don't have to be the greatest of all time at anything, but being a specialist, you sacrifice other things. Being a generalist is a little more holistic, in my opinion, where I can go into scenarios, let's say a marketing or a business scenario. I can see a lot of different weaknesses and pain points, and I can't necessarily solve them all, but I know someone who can. So the specialist is necessary for a surgery, for a specific task. In marketing, I'm not good at pay per click, but I understand when someone needs it, so then I can hand it to the specialist. So I find that the generalist is more versatile. It's all about having great who's in your world, who can help here, who can help here. I'm not perfect at anything, but I know someone who can help. But the greatest of all time is always going to be a specialist. But to be the greatest specialist, you have to be so focused on one thing that you're the greatest athlete of all time, but you don't have good relationships with your family in some cases. So I don't know, man. I think generalist is the new specialist, man, because it makes you dangerous. It really does.
Yeah, that comes back to that frames per second thing. You just have more
Mm,
options, that more tools in the belt. Um, when you're balancing all these different things, it's I think a lot of it probably comes down to systems, or that's I'd imagine that you have to build systems to keep everything chugging along. What are your kind of your philosophies on systems, and then specifically kind of what systems do you have? Do you have employees? Do you have AI integrations, APIs, coding? Do you like how do you keep everything churning to be able to focus on so many different things and make progress across the board?
These are huge questions because, like, we could go into the system of a business and that would take like
Yeah,
a really long time to go every individual detail. But it's
it's
all
more on like
about
the philosophical level. Like
yeah, it's all
how do
about
you
routine, dude. It's about routine. And I always say that honestly, I say success comes from memories of winning, but you can fill in the blank. Success comes from memories of winning, confidence comes from memories of winning, mastery comes from memories of winning, resilience comes from memories of winning. Maybe it doesn't work in every context, but you want to create memories of winning. So having non-negotiables, and and again, are we talking about our body, are we talking about our business, are we talking about bonds or relationships? Like, it's having non-negotiables. So when I wake up and I have a morning routine, I have memories of winning because I've done these non-negotiables. When I have a process of putting a podcast out, I know that I have a show notes writer, I know I have someone that helps with shorts, I know that I first off I have the person that it's like I could give you all of it, but I've got the long form guy, then I have the short form, then I have a trailer for every episode, then I have show notes for every episode, then I have a graphic designer, then I have the distribution, then I have the emailing to the guest, then I have the promotion. There's a lot going on there, but I have memories of doing this hundreds of times now, so the system has created itself. I unfortunately didn't start with a system,
mm,
but I started to realize what worked and what didn't. For example, I used to create all the shorts myself because I'm better at it than most people, and it's still the case. But because I was creating all the shorts myself, I was spending a crazy amount of time on it, and it was causing other parts of my business to struggle. So I had to be humble enough to hand that task to somebody else, and it created time in a new location. And now I see it. But I feel like part of building the system is just getting in the mud. You can follow a system, but it depends on your team. You need to be able to pivot and change things. But to go back, because a lot of times I feel like I'm talking too much, Jake, because it's like a doctor giving advice without seeing the MRI, because every business is different, every person's different, every team's different. But you said it, like if you create systems, if you create routines, and then you have memories and data points showing that you're winning, you're having success, that's how it's built. Consistency is key, man.
yeah. All right. So it's we've got the system kind of growing organically. And then you're talking about kind of building the system through memories. I'm curious, do you ever kind of reverse engineer that and use like call it visualization, manifestation? Do you ever kind of like really think through something to the point where you like fully understand it, even though it doesn't exist yet, and to kind of like define the direction of growth for the systems? Like, do you use um, any whatever you want to call it, visualization, meditation? Um, do you use anything like that?
A little bit. I'm not an expert on it. Like
Yeah.
I've got revenue goals. I've got a stock portfolio. I have goals for that. Um, I can see. I've never been in terrible shape, but I was in bad shape, and I can see my future body in my head. But I'm not an expert at this.
Yeah.
I am a little more stubborn than some people. I'm not fluffy. I'm not like in the clouds woo imagining that I'm like I need data to prove it. So like when I imagine my future body, I less see that body, I more see the actions required to get there. And when I see the revenue goals, I'm more thinking about, so I do some visualization. I have like a North Star, but I'm less focused on the manifesting it and I'm more focused on just the doing the stuff that gets me
Yeah.
there. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I like it. So it's but you do kind of like go through like some sort of internal gap analysis, like
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm probably giving my like I don't give myself enough credit. Anything I do, I've usually thought about more than 95% of people.
yeah.
It's I used to think I was an overthinker. I think it's a superpower again because of that gap analysis. So to me it's normal. To me
Mhm.
I could be thinking about it more. But
Yeah,
I've learned how to step into action and I think especially like for men like you step into action is where we learn the most in my experience.
sure. All right, I'm gonna ask this question. I've probably already asked it in different terms, but slightly different angle. Like when you're, let's call it thinking forward, right? When you're overthinking, thinking forward, but you're kind of like projecting forward in time.
Yeah.
Um, so when you're thinking forward, like, is it a visual experience? Is it like in your body? Like, do you feel like if you're thinking through your goals and understanding the gap, understanding which decisions, is it like, do you feel it in your gut? Do you feel it in your body? Do you see it in your mind? Um, what like is that actual gap analysis experience like? Where does that take place?
Yeah, this is I indicated kind of earlier that I struggle at this. I'm not
Yeah.
perfect because idealistically you feel it in your body. And if you're visualizing, the key isn't just a goal written on a piece of paper, it's experiencing it now. I like to say, be it until you become it. It's being it now. Simple example mentor of mine said, your podcast is changed the world. Oprah calls you up. She wants you on the show overnight. How do you feel? And the feeling I had was shame, anxiety, imposter syndrome. I haven't done that. I haven't changed the world. Why is Oprah calling me? True visualization is feeling that excitement and confidence, feeling that certainty, feeling the success prior to it even existing. And I struggle with this. But if we're really going to try to visualize, it's not just let's think about making that shot at the free throw line. What's it smell like? What do people are yelling at me? People want me to fail. I'm not going to fail. I make this 9 out of 10 and I'm guaranteed to make this right now. It's literally feeling it in the moment. So do as I say, not as I do. I'm not an expert at this, but if you don't physically feel different in your body and your breathing, you're not truly visualizing. You're kind of there's a surface level and there's truly moving into the moment and I find that difficult to do sometimes, but it's a practice.
That's interesting.
I've thought about all these things before, man.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell. Yeah, it's usually I found with achievements, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes things just line up and you kind of get there ahead of schedule. But a lot of times when you do do get an achievement, whether it's making a free throw um or getting a big job that you spend all those years studying for, it's like it usually makes sense. It's usually it's like, yep, I delivered in that moment, or I didn't. It makes sense the other way too. But it usually is, yeah. So it's cool. I'm always interested in looking back. Everything makes sense, but
Mm,
you can kind of reverse engineer it and look forward. And you got to understand though what would need to be true for it to make sense to get to that North Star, as you called it. But yeah, man, this is pretty cool. I love doing these more abstract
yeah.
episodes. Um, we can start wrapping up. How can people find you? What are you working on now? What people are interested by this conversation? How can they get deeper into what you're into now?
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep it super, super easy. I wouldn't be here without Jake inviting me on the platform. So if you haven't hit subscribe here, hit subscribe, 5 stars, thumbs up, leave a comment, leave a review. There's no wrong way to support, but show some love. I ramble on purpose, Jake, to like literally do it right now. Thumbs up, 5 stars. Like again, just show some love. You can find me wherever you found this or Google it. Real business connections. Real business connections. It's a podcast. We have a marketing leg. We also have a community called Grow Getters Only for growth minded entrepreneurs. But it starts with liking this, typing in the words real business connections, and then choose your own adventure as to what you want to do from there.
I love it. And all those links will be included in the description below
Sweet.
as well. Everywhere this posted. So yeah, thank you, Ben Albert. This was a really cool conversation. I'm glad we got to do this.
Thanks for having me, Jake.